Here. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item C, it is recommended that Kevin Grimm be elected as treasurer pro temp due to the absence of the treasurer.
Move.
First and second. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes. Motion carried. Moving on to public comments. We do not have anybody signed up. So Alex, if you can make your announcement.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live broadcast of the last board meeting of 2018. I'm Alex Antonsic. Tonight's board meeting is being held in the Deffer Intermediate Cafeteria. Back over to you, School Board President Brian Violi.
Thank you, Alex. And moving on to approval of minutes, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from November 8th, 2018 as submitted.
Move. Second.
We have first and second. Any comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. And moving on to superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to begin with a special presentation. So if I could have Tracy Campbell come up front, please. If you know Tracy, she hates to be in front of everyone. She hates it when people talk about her. You can come right over here. Okay. So many of you know that Tracy, I'm going to call her an unsung hero because Tracy, for more than 8 years, served as our PTA president. And that's a job, I can tell you that just from talking to Tracy and watching what she did over the years, that's a job that required a lot of time away from her family. A lot of time, it took a lot of her daily time, weekly time, monthly time. She did so much for our school district. How much money did you raise under your tenure, help raise?
Over $270,000.
$270,000.
And more importantly, we really helped with communication and so many other things that it was great to be part of.
Well, I want to tell you that from a personal level, as a superintendent, this was my first superintendency. And I'll use the words, relied on Tracy to communicate with me when she thought, hey, Mike, you're missing something. Hey, Mike, did you think about this? Or hey, Mike, and she had my number and she texted me pretty frequently. And I welcomed that because I was new to the job. And I think even if you're not new to the job, hearing that unbiased view is always a good thing. So I was talking to some of the members of the board and they said, Mike, we really should do something for Tracy. And I was like, you are absolutely correct. So what we did is we put together a commemorative plaque for Tracy to honor her for all of her years of service to PTA. And I want to present that to you tonight.
So Thank you. I do. Thank you very much. I have a good relationship, I think, with everybody. It's sometimes I'm a real pain in the tail, and another time I'm probably your best communication tool. Over 8 years of really being in the trenches and hearing about what the parents had to say and community members and then staff, you try to be a liaison and you try to help out as much as you can. And at the end of the day, I can talk in front of 500 people with no problem. Surprises, he invited me, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what's going on? He said, it's all good. But this, I proudly accept this, but on behalf of everyone that has ever worked on my board, because it was a job for everyone, and I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you, Tracy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on, thank you, Tracy. So moving on, we each month we are doing a feature called Did You Know? And we want to highlight things about the district that perhaps you didn't know about. So this month our Did You Know is coming from the high school. I'm going to invite Mr. Hogue up to introduce our program for
Thank you, Mr. Dalbon. I know that we have a big agenda, so forgive me if I will edit as much as I can my introductory remarks and get right to the real stuff. So when we were selected to do it for this month, I went right to thinking, what are we doing instructionally that you guys might want to know about? And so we put a presentation in place, talked to some teachers. I actually talked to them, laid the groundwork for it in August, and then reminded them a couple weeks ago, hey, we have this ready. So we're going to have the math department come up and talk to you about how we're using assessment data to affect our instruction in math. But we also, then I thought, well, they want to see students because I know that's what you guys like. So we have a couple students right at the end. Real quick, we have some cool things that have happened for some of the kids in our building, so we'll do that after the math presentation. But I'd like to bring up right now our math department head, Ryan Spence, and our Algebra 1 teacher, Chris Kasorik.
Okay, so we just want to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing in the math department wise, and specifically for how we use data to drive our instruction and what we use with that to help make the best decisions for our kids. So first thing we look at, because we have tons of data, has to do with all the standardized test data that we get. We look at STAR data, which is a vendor assessment that we have to use, and that kids are tested with that 3 times a year. We look at air test data, and we look at the PSAT data that we have, which also our 8th graders take the PSAT data. So, we help identify and predict with that data the kids that we think might be at risk or being a little bit behind in terms of where they need to be. So to help grow them, this past year we looked at historical data from these students, the current freshman class, and looked at how they did 7th, 8th grade, and all these different kinds of assessments, and looked to see which kids we think might be having some transition issues going up to the high school and how we can better serve them. So ultimately with that, we looked at that maybe these kids need a double dose of math. So these kids are taking a double period of math. And we also have done this not only with our Algebra 1 students, but our geometry students to help kind of close the gap as far as using some spiraling to help remediate them, and also still teach the current standards. So with that, I'll just show you real quick the spreadsheet that was put together. Andres, if you could click on that. So all the names are wiped out and everything, but we can put together and you can look and scroll through there. But basically, it's all color coded based on how the standardized tests rank them as far as what we're looking for, and then we can put together a plan for some of those kids that we feel are the most at risk. And now those kids are in Mr. Kasorik's classroom, and they get a double dose of that math. So that's one way that we can use that to help identify the kids that we think might need additional support. We also have looked at, because with the state report card, and breaking down the air data in a better and more efficient way to really see what's happening with that. So we've looked at, each year we get the results from those air tests from the Ohio Department of Education site, and then looking at that, we can highlight the students' strengths and weaknesses, and also kind of look at us as a whole. What are we covering well? What can we do better? To cover maybe a certain topic more deeply the next time we do this. So we can look at item analysis as well for each student, and I've also made it so we can match up previous released test questions that the state has released, so we can go back and use those. So when we see that standard that's coming up in our class when we're going to teach that, we can go and directly use the air test questions that we've done in the past. So we can look at just a little quick snapshot of that document. So it's broken down in terms of algebra and geometry. So you can look at how we're doing above, near, and below proficient in terms of the top areas here for Algebra 1 functions. number, quantities, statistics, modeling, and reason. And we have it broken down based on our subgroups because, that's how we're kind of measured and rated in terms of state and on the report card. So we have it broken down for that as well. You can also look down on the tab there. This is a great document right here. It takes a look at the previous questions, and we're matched up with the standards that we have, and then we can also see where we are doing well, not doing well. Most of the air test questions are either 0 points or 1 point, so we can see which ones we're doing well on, right? Where like that first one, we can see 83% of our kids earned the full 1 point, 17 did not, but then we can see some of those areas highlighted in red where that was not a good question for us. So we need to address that better. And then you can also, if you would click on like number 7, where it says recognize sequences or functions, you can click directly on that, and that will link it up to the actual question. So then we can go and we have that. So when we're going through, we see the standards. Okay, there's that standard that we're covering. Let's go see exactly what they're asking our kids to do on the air test, and then we can use that in our classes as well.
Slide.
Yep. So yeah, we have that both for algebra and geometry on there as well. Mentioned a little bit about STAR before as well. STAR, again, is a vendor assessment that we've had for many years. Basically, there's a couple reports that we can pull from that as well to help us. There's a diagnostic report, and I'll show you these things real quick. It gives a nice snapshot for each student. It's helpful in parent-teacher conferences, the RTI process, and then will help us show the strengths and weaknesses for each student. And then there's also a state standards for the class that you can take a look at your class and see what kids are above, at, or below mastery for each one. And again, we can use that to help us curb our instruction for those specific kids. So real quick, that's the diagnostic report. The colors up at the top correspond to the scores you could get on the air test and what they're predicting. So the dark green would be earning a 5, light green is a 4. Blue is proficient, that would be the minimum that you would need to pass the air test. And then yellow is a 2, red would be a 1. So, this example student would be proficient right now. You can go through and see their percentile rank, their grade level equivalent, those kind of things. And again, using that to help meet the needs of each individual student. This one's the other report. You can break it down based on the class, and you can see up at the top is the standard. So when we get to that standard, we know how many kids are above mastery, within, or below. And those red arrows there will show us if we think that kid will need additional help just to meet that standard, not just the normal instruction that you would have in the class, but they would need additional support to get to that standard and meet that as well. So that helps identify it, and that we have that breakdown for every single standard that our course would cover. Real quick here, and then I'll turn it over to Chris. Something else we've been using to help, especially with the online tests that we've have to deal with all the state assessments is Edulastic. It's an online test system that we can put in questions or use questions that other people have created, and basically helps kids get used to taking a math test online, because that's a very different feel for a student that always does it writing pencil paper. That was a big hurdle that we had to get over, is getting kids used to typing in things correctly on the state tests. It gives us instant data on how the students did, and again, we can use pre-made assessments or make our own questions. And then once we start getting those questions banks going, any teacher in the building or in the district can pull from those questions that maybe Mr. Kasorik made or another teacher, and they can use those as well. So this, again, just real briefly, is looking at a class and seeing all the individual questions. Green would be they got the question right, yellow was partial credit, red was they got it incorrect, and then the blue kind of wavy line there shows the time spent on each question. And that's the breakdown for the class. You can see it also for an individual student and seeing which questions they got right and which ones they got wrong or partially right or wrong, and how much time they spent on each question. All right. Last thing I want to talk about, and really Mr. Kasorik's going to do this, is with IXL. Mr. Kasorik brought this to the district when he started last year with us, and he did this in algebra, and also had our other algebra teacher, Mr. Foster, use this and got on board with this program. And again, he'll show you and talk about it, but I just want to show you our air test results for algebra since we've had this. So in the spring of 2016, 32% of our kids passed algebra. Not good. All right. Next year, spring of 2017, 40% passed. Then Mr. Kasorik introduced IXL to his Algebra 1 students, also got Mr. Foster on board using that as well. And this spring, 60% of our students passed. Which again is striving in the right direction. It's not where we want it to be yet, but that's a huge increase right there of our kids in the high school, 20% point increase there. So Mr. Kasorik's going to quickly show you that, and then we'll be done.
So the two programs that are being shown here, the Edge Elastic and the IXL, there is so much information that can be shown per parent, per kid, stuff like that. And at any time anyone wants to see more of this stuff, everyone's welcome to come into my classroom. We have a professional development day next Friday, and I'll be happy to go over all this stuff. But in a nutshell, what IXL is essentially when we were all the adults, when we were all in school, we had worksheets that we took home, or books, and we did pencil and paper. And think about this: when you took a worksheet home and you did 20 problems, you may spend 25 minutes on doing 20 problems, but you have no idea if you did it right or wrong. So the next day you have to go in and the teacher goes over it, and traditionally, you got to go over the answers. But with IXL, what happens is everything is Common Core based. It's for every subject as well. And Andres, if you want to go to learning, and then go to the math. So on the left-hand side, as you can see, this math, I'm going to talk about math. It goes from pre-K, if you scroll down the left-hand side, it goes all the way to calculus and everywhere in between. So every level can do this. I have kids at home. My daughter's 5th grade. She works on this at home as part of some of her assignments and stuff. So what this does is, if we go to an algebra skill, any algebra skill that you want to touch on or deal with, it's here. And everything's aligned to the Common Core. Now, again, I'm not going to have time to go through how it's linked up to the standards, but it is. And so if you were to pick a topic, we go up here to Y1 and click on Identifying Monomials. Now, you don't have to know anything about math. But when the kids are now assigned a certain topic, if you over here to the right-hand side, it'll tell the kid, it'll tell me and everybody how many questions they answered. It has here time elapsed, so it tells us how long they spent on each question and overall on the assignment. And down here, they give what's called a SMART score. And what happens is, if the kids are working in class or at home or wherever, they have access, they can download it on their phone. If they answer the question correctly, it'll tell them right away, and it gives them a SMART score of a 20. It increases as they do better with it. It is aligned towards their level. If they are struggling with it, this program sees that and understands it, and then it'll scale down the questions. If they're doing well with it, it'll then challenge them, and the questions will get harder. The overall goal for getting a SMART score is anywhere from an 80 to a 90 to 100, based on what the teacher wants them to do. Now, what happens is, when the kid misses it, if they're doing a worksheet, they may not know they missed it, and they have to wait till the following day to go over. Well, right away, it's going to tell them they missed it, and then it gives a detailed explanation of everything that they need to know. So now the kids are required in my class to take some notes, to read over how to do it, so that I don't have to stand over top of them. It becomes more independent. This is more student-driven than the teacher just kind of standing there and the kids getting bored and stuff. So they're working, they're engaged, they're focused, and they're challenging themselves. So once they figured out and they read over what to do, they hit got it. Now, if you notice what happened to the SMART score, it started to decrease. As they continue answering the questions and they get it right, the SMART score continues to go up. So overall, this is a program that we've used. I've used it a lot, and not only here, but in the past, and it individualizes everything. So if a young man or young woman needs extra help at home, I can assign individual lessons. They have nobody to worry about. They can work on their own. I can track everything, and this is something that's been very beneficial. It's been a great program. I love it. Mr. Hogue, Mr. Newman have been in my classrooms to witness it, to see it. And again, I give an open invitation to any of the parents, any community members, and any of the board. Did you guys want to come in and kind of see more of what it's all about? And it's just been a great program, and hopefully that we continue to use it. And as Mr. Spence said, we continue to see our test scores improve. So that's kind of a general idea of what IXL is. All right, thanks.
So as you can see, the cool thing about it is that you really maximize class time. You know, in the past, you know, if you watch a math teacher teach or any teacher teach, they're teaching to the group, and there might be periods where one teacher or one student is, well, I know this, and you know, they don't have to listen now for about 10 minutes, and we're up. The kids are all working on what they need to work individually, and so, you know, 48 minutes can be very beneficial for a kid, as opposed to 48 minutes of a class that isn't utilizing a program like this, where, you know, they're reviewing something now that I know. So, you know, for a couple kids that weren't here yesterday, so really it helps us get the most out of our instructional time, and there's no arguing with our test scores. You know, when I first started at Streetsboro, we had 4 math teachers. That was the size of our department, and really we had 3 math teachers, and we had somebody that was just new coming on. But the 3 math teachers were Mr. Arlesic, who was kind of like the veteran, and we had Mrs. Dinesco, Miss Carey, if you remember her, and Mr. Spence. And I couldn't believe we only had 4 math teachers. And coming from Twinsburg High School, I couldn't believe how small the department was. And it was one less than the other departments, but it was amazing to see how dynamic they were and how they worked together as a great team. But losing Mr. Arlesic and Mrs. Dinesco, like in the span of a year, really kind of reset the department. We've hired some good young teachers. Mr. Teague, Mrs. Sert have done great. They're young. When Mrs. Dinesco left, we hired Mrs. DiLorenzo, and she's turning out to be a great math teacher. She's only in her 3rd year. But this last time when we had a math opening, we were fortunate enough to find Mr. Kosorik, who I had worked with before, previous to this in Twinsburg, and he's a vet. And you can tell he's been around the math world. He's taught in the inner city, he's taught in the country, and he's taught in the suburbs. He's got a lot of experience, and you know, a lot of friends that are in education, and what he's brought to our math department, along with Mr. Spence's leadership, has really created momentum for the math department in the right direction, but it's also found its way to inspiring the other departments. So we have, you know, our English department has found a program similar to IXL, but the English version, they're kind of doing the same thing. And it's really given us a lot of positive momentum in our TBTs, our teacher-based team meetings that we have every couple weeks. And it's really been a profound impact on the high school instruction. So, you know, last year, there are 8 indicators on the state report card for high schools. Last year, we met 5, and Mr. Newman and I aren't real pleased with that. You know, we want to be 8 for 8. And 2 of the areas we haven't met is math, and that's a problem. But last year we went up 13 points from 58 to 71% in Algebra 1. And we went up 4 points in geometry. And geometry is the bear for every district in Ohio. I mean, over 50% of the kids in Ohio don't pass the geometry test. So the geometry test is what's really tough. But with the IXL program and the Edulastic and some of the other things that we've done, identifying the kids that need the extra help, we're hoping that we can really keep those test scores on the rise. This fall, our juniors that took the PSAT saw their math scores go up 12 points, which is significant. So we're hoping to continue that trend. And Mr. Spence and Mr. Kosorik have been big parts, so I can't thank them. The next thing we have for you is the kid part of it. So I'm going to ask Maddie Lanier, Navi Chima, and Rachel Boyer to come up at this time. While they're walking up, I'll tell you, they're not here for basketball, but they are all on the varsity girls basketball team, which has started out 7-1. I'm sure you all know. We're not here to tell everybody Rachel scored 1,000 points, but Rachel scored 1,000 points. All 3 of these girls are great. We have a lot of great seniors this year. It's a very strong senior class. They're all, you can check every box. They're all ranked in the top 10. They're all 4.27 grade point averages. They're in every club. They do everything. They play sports in the fall. They play sports in the winter, and some of them play sports in the spring. If they're not playing sports in the spring, they're playing their winter sport in the spring. But they do it all. Rachel is our team board representative. So there's a team board in Portage County. Every high school has 1 student. They meet once a month to determine who the teens of the month are. So each Each representative comes to the meeting with a male and female student from their school who have a great resume. They present that student, say what a great kid they are, and then the board votes at the end, and they name one student, one male and one female student, the teen of the month each year. Usually you get about, in my 5 years here, we get a teen of the month once a year in Portage County. There's one year we had 2, but it's a significant honor. I mean, for the entire county, the best kids, and there's a lot of great kids. If you get named teen of the month, that's a big deal. Rachel is our teen board rep, so she's the one that goes each month and presents our teen nominees. She does a great job, and to prove that, in only her first meeting, she presented Maddie Lanier as one of our teen nominees, and Maddie was named Portage County Teen of the Month for November. Go ahead, you can clap. I can tell you all the things Maddie does, but we have a long meeting. But I will just say, I think one of the things that really stood out to the members, and I know this from talking to Rachel, was she did a 3-week mission trip in Tanzania this summer, and you can tell her mom's photography skill has been passed along to Maddie, because she came home with great pictures that we all had a chance to see at the high school. But that's not the only thing she's done. She's done just about everything else. So National Honor Society, Student Council, it's just, she's a great kid, and it was great to see her get recognized in that way. So Maddie Lanier is the Portage County Teen of the Month. We thought you'd want to know about that. Navi Chima, who is, again, the same thing I said about Maddie, she's at Student Council, National Honor Society. She's got a 4.7 grade point average. She's ranked in the top 3 of the senior class. She takes all honors classes. She plays star on the volleyball team. Plays basketball. I think she's run track too, and she's in every club. In the student leadership team. One of the influential people last year when we did the walkout and we did the safety meeting. She's been a great kid and really contributed in such a positive way to the high school. I can't thank her enough. But she went to Buckeye Girls State and applied for the United States Youth Senate program. So the Ohio Department of Education runs this. They select it. It's funded by the Hearst Foundation. 140, 150 approximately kids in Ohio applied for this. They're all the leaders in their schools. So you're talking about not the best 150 kids in the state, but 150 of the best kids in the state. All leaders in their schools applied for this award. She made it to the final 40. The Ohio Department of Education vetted the 140, 150 applicants. They decided that Navi's application was one of the top 40. So I got a call from somebody from the Ohio Department of Education about 2 months ago, and I thought that was a great honor. And I thought maybe we should announce this. Then I'm a little bit superstitious, and I thought it might jinx her. I'm like, wow, the odds of her winning. I mean, there's only 2 kids in the state that are going to win it, right? And the odds of her winning it are not good. But it's not. So maybe she will win. I don't know. So I kept it to myself, which, if you know me, isn't that easy for me to do. And then so they mailed something to me. She had to take like a 67-question test on her own. She had to do an essay. I had to write her a letter of recommendation. We had to give them all kinds of stuff, and we sent it all in. And I kind of forgot about it. And then a week ago, I got a call from the Ohio Department of Education that said Navi is one of the 2 kids from Ohio. Again, out of 150 kids. She's one of the 2 kids from Ohio that will spend a week in Washington, D.C. in the spring, get to meet all of the senators, get to understand what it is to be somebody in our legislature, and she also gets a $10,000 scholarship. It's a huge honor. 50 kids in the country, 2 from each state, will go. Over 5,000 apply. So it's maybe the biggest honor a student has earned while I've been principal at Streetsboro High School. And I can't think of anybody that deserves it more than that. So. If you guys want to look at the link to the United States Senate Youth Program and everything that's about it, look at that on your own time. So I'll send it in my book. Okay, thank you very much. I have the Bulliards, the Laniers, and the Chimas stand up. The parents, please. They all came. We appreciate what you've done to support them. Thanks, parents. Okay, thank you.
Does it get better after that?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to thank the high school staff for presenting the program tonight. These three young ladies, I mean, it's obvious from what Mr. Ho pointed out, these three young ladies are quality kids. I mean, I can't say enough nice things about them. They're just three great kids, and they well-deserved honors for all of them. Okay, moving on. Next, I would like to invite Arian Curtis up to the podium, and while she's coming up, I'll tell you that we had the fortunate honor, and it was about a year ago, that we partnered with Kent State University to host some visiting scholars or visiting teachers from Saudi Arabia. And so I'm not going to say any more than that. I want Arian to go ahead and introduce two gentlemen that came tonight and tell you a little bit about the program.
I was contacted a little over a year ago from Kent State that they were awarded a grant. They were one of 3 universities in the United States awarded this grant to bring teachers from Saudi Arabia to the United States and spend time and learn what it's like to be a teacher here in the United States and about schooling here. So we met them, I think, for the first time. I got to meet them for the first time last spring at Kent State, and then they started with us here full time in the fall. And we had 4 gentlemen who were at the middle school with our English department at the middle school with Mr. Sitzel, Mrs. Halleck, Mrs. Cochran, and Mrs. Ekron. And then we had 2 gentlemen at the high school with Mrs. Yushiroda and Mr. Ruggiero. And so they spent the last 3.5 months not only with that partner teacher, but then getting out into the entire district, learning what schooling's like here in the United States. We would have conversations about how they're like, these classes are so small. And, you know, because in their country, sometimes 40, 50 kids in a class, and that rotates through. They were sharing with us, you know, every hour, it's a new class of 40 or 50 students. And so just learning how education is in theirs, it's been a real learning experience, I think, for all of us, as well as all of them. And they got to go to the elementary school. They went to Depper. They were at the middle school, the high school. They came to the board office and interviewed me. They, interviewed the principals. They came to a district leadership team meeting. They went to staff meetings, and really just to get a feel for what education is like here in the United States. So tonight with us, we have the 2 teachers who work with Mrs. Halleck and Mrs. Rugaber. So we have Amjad here, who was with Mrs. Rugaber, and Mahmoud, who was with Ms. Halleck. So they're going to talk first.
Hello, everyone, and it's nice to meet you here this evening. And this evening, just we want to, first of all, introduce ourselves. This is Mahmoud Al-Fardan. I'm an English teacher in Saudi Arabia. We are here in a program which is called Building Leadership Through School Immersions. So we are doing a project in Kent State University. Besides that, we are taking some classes and seminars in Kent State University. Besides that, we are here. We are about 6 teachers in your school district. I with Mr. Amjad, we are here. Mr. Amjad can introduce himself as well. He is an Arabic teacher, and doing the same thing with me. We are here, just want to thank all of you for your warm support and in our observation here in your schools. I believe your school is one of good schooling system that we have to do something like what you have implemented in your schools. Generally, during our observation, we observe different schools. I'm mainly in middle school while Mr. Amjad is in high school. We are here to just take a glance on the things and the teachers and some strategies which are maybe helpful for us to doing a final project in Kent State University. Sometimes the words fail us to express our attitude, but we are here, and I would like to seize an opportunity to extend our greatest gratitude to each teacher, staff, and all school members as well, and for students as well, and for the Board of Education here for your warm support and sharing experiences with your Saudi teachers, colleagues. and more power to your elbow, and thank you so much. So before the end, so we'd like to just present a sample present for the Board of Education, and on behalf of my colleagues, on behalf of the 4 colleagues, we are here, we are 2 teachers out of 6. So we would like to thank you, and on behalf of my my colleagues' names, Mr. Amjad, he is here, Mr. Ahmed Al-Halawi, and Mr. Nasser Lenizi, Mr. Abdullah Lotebi, and Mr. Qadr Fifi. All of them, they are to some extent doing something. So we are here on behalf of them, and please accept our present, which is a little bit symbol for your warm support. Can we present it to Mr.
Violi?
Yeah. Thank you so much, and appreciate your nice support. And because of your, or it's a type of recognition for your support. Thank you so much, and more power to your elbow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
One of the things that they had to do while they're here was think about a concern area in their home country and how that they could tackle it here by learning more about here. And so at the end of January, we'll get to go to Kent State and see them present their final projects and see what that is. But they've also been doing videos online, and they started tagging us in them. So then we're like, oh, we're on the internet. We're going to show this one. It's just a little over a minute. This is one of the final ones they did from here. So Andreas is going to show you
I would love to try this aid. Thank you so much. I was very honored to be here in Streetsboro Middle School for 3 months.
Actually, it was amazing experience to have us in Streetsboro.
It was a wonderful experience. Many thanks for your asking.
It was a pleasure to be at Streetsboro Middle School. Thank you so much.
This has been great. I've really enjoyed this. I hope this is something that we can do again with Kent State. I myself feel like I've learned so much from our 6 teachers that we've had with us, and I just hope that we've been able to provide this with the 6 of them memories and ideas that they can take back and use with them in their home country.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So if you have questions, so we are ready, sure.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for bringing your experience to us as well. Culture's always great to share, and we appreciate your time here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, one of the items that our district leadership team, our teachers and staff, very frankly, Ariane, Joe, and I in central office, we've been struggling with, and it's been a reoccurring theme around the levy as well, was our district report card. And you saw tonight glimpses of what's going on in our district, and we have a lot of really positive initiatives. We've targeted a lot of areas that we feel that we are that we were deficient in. We're teaching all of our teachers to use data to make instructional decisions, so tracking kids. We're currently looking for, as a part of our strategic plan, a learning management system where we can track kids individually across the years, looking at their test scores and their data, and that helps us make better instructional decisions. But to be very frank, we don't understand. I don't understand, with all the things that we have in place, why our scores are where they're at. So when Ariane and I went to the Ohio School Board Association's conference, one of the things that the 2 of us took some time doing were visiting some sessions on curriculum audits. And a curriculum audit is basically a third party comes into your district and they critically analyze the standards, your curriculum, and then drills it all the way down to what's being taught in the classroom. And then what they do is they give us back then a report of what we thought, what really is, and then they give you basically a prescription saying, here are some things that you need to target and attack in the years to come or in the months to come. We did identify an area and identified Ashland University has been really doing this for a lot of districts. They've done some around here, some districts around here. It's been highly successful. I met with another company that partnered with Chagrin and Reynoldsburg, and we chose to move forward with doing a curriculum audit with Ashland University. We are on the calendar to have that done in, I believe, January. There is a cost to it, but we're paying the lion's share of that cost out of federal funds, so it's not going to cost the general fund that much money. But I did want to publicly say that, you know, that I know the board knows this, but, you know, we have been concerned about our test scores. We believe, and we've said this before, that we have a lot of great initiatives going on, but it's time for an unbiased look, someone, a third party that understands state standards, understands the teaching profession, understands classrooms, to really drill down it. We know what we think, but maybe we don't really know what's going on. And this isn't a get you by any means. This is how can we get better. So we're going to take that critical look. It's going to be a 3 to 4 day process. Then they break. They come back in about 30 days after they compile all the information that they gather, and they're going to sit down and give us a pretty comprehensive look at our district, K-12. So I wanted to give you that feedback. I wanted to tell you that we are moving forward with that. There is a cost. We're taking that out of federal funds, a small portion out of the general fund. But I felt like this is something that we needed to do at this point, just to get that third party to kind of take a look at what we're doing. Denise, you look up, you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I am very glad that you're doing it because I have some of the same questions. I mean, we have a lot of people, or not a lot, but we have folks come before us each month with their promising practices, and we hear a lot of great things that are happening in the classroom that aren't necessarily being reflected on test scores. So I am very supportive of moving forward with that initiative.
You know, I will tell you that I've said this before, and I said this to our DLT, and I've said it to our staff. You know, I believe that we've got an outstanding staff. So we've got to find what that disconnect is. We've got some ideas, and we don't necessarily think that it's all about instruction. There might be some management things that we need to do differently that affect test scores, but that's why we want this third party to come in that knows what they're looking for, knows what they're doing. So as soon as we have that done, and then we meet with and get our results, if the board pleases, I will share that at a board meeting if you guys would like to hear about it. Okay. And then, then we'll move forward from there. So I want to give that quick update. Moving on, strategic plan. We had a company volunteer, pro bono, their time to create a one-page professional snapshot of our strategic plan. Andres, if you bring that up on the screen, and I'm going to put them on the spot. But we're going to have, I talked to Maplewood. Maplewood's going to print these for us on a heavy grain paper. But here is our one-page shot of our strategic plan. Very professional, very nicely done. And we're actually going to have the Maplewood Career Center print these for us. I'm going to do about 500 of these, so I'm not going to go overboard. We're going to place some of these in each of our offices. I'm going to place some at the City Council, also at the Realty Board and Chamber of Commerce. We'll place them there. It's obviously online now. And our intentions are, and I'd like feedback from all of you, but you know, part of the strategic plan is you want people to own it and understand it. So we're going to move forward with actually making a copy like this and laminating it. And we're going to require it to be in every staff member's area. And we're going to require our principals to check to make sure that that's there. And we're going to start making this the topic of our conversations. So when somebody says, hey, I want to go to this staff development, well, show me where that fits on the strategic plan. Hey, I want to do this initiative. Well, show me where that fits on the strategic plan. We want to make this become a living document in our district. We also would like, this was Ariane's idea, to make a large poster of it and put it in the entrances of all of our buildings. So with your permission, I want to move forward with doing that. There are minimal printing costs to do that. The Maplewood folks are going to do this on a heavyweight paper, and I'll pass this around, for 17 cents a copy, and it's with the bleed. You can see that it bleeds over the edges rather than boxed. And then I'm going to talk to Randy Griffith also about a larger poster size that we can put in our lobbies. And then also maybe about one that's on a heavier cardstock laminated for in all of our district staff areas, whether it's your classroom, your area, whatever. So I'm going to pass this around. And what do you guys think? We really wanted it to look nice and look like a professional document. And I think we achieved that. And I will say, props to Andreas' wife. She said, "Hey, I want to do this for free," and she owns a marketing company, and they did that for free for us. She was excited about it. I think Andreas is excited to be here. I don't want to speak for him, but she sees that excitement at home, and so this was her way to kind of give back to the district. So this was 100% pro bono, a donation to us. Feedback?
Well, just real quick, please extend our appreciation to your wife.
Will do.
I've seen it, so I'm all for it. It was great.
I think it's a great idea too. I think we need to keep it top of mind, and you know, as we move forward, like you said, everything should be measured against, is this part of our strategic plan, and what goal is it helping us reach? And we need to not, you know, put it on a bookshelf and let it collect dust and forget about it. We need to keep it in front of us all the time.
Not only does it look good, it seems like you're taking the necessary steps to get people familiar with it and to put it out there. So that's great too. It's a good idea.
I think Denise made the comment last board meeting or 2 board meetings ago that we don't want it on the shelf collecting dust, and so that's the goal. All right. So
thank your wife for us profusely.
Sure, will do.
Take her out to dinner.
Yes.
She
does. I've had chili all week. It's fantastic.
All right, moving on. The next couple items, you know, I apologize, aren't as positive as the first part of our program, but it's there are items that have to be talked about, very frankly. The first item I want to talk about is our board office project. For those of you who don't know, we actually began the process as the last step of our building project was always to address the administrative offices. Originally, we were going to do a partial renovation of the old middle school, which is now called the Annex, to house our administrative offices. And so with our community continuing to grow, I asked our architects, again, as part of the building process, to do an analysis of using the old middle school or the Annex, do some soft renovations, and then also adding an addition to the current board office. This was all from PI dollars, 0 operating dollars, all permanent improvement dollars. Permanent improvement dollars cannot be used for operating the district. It has nothing to do with the school levy, 0. Well, we did the analysis. It was actually cheaper and probably a little more, it made more sense to add on to the current board office, because we believe at some point in the near future, obviously we don't have a crystal ball, that we're going to need that middle school for students. Because we are growing rapidly, and everyone knows the city has approved, I want to say it's closer to 200 to 300 homes now over the next several years to be built. That's going to mean more students into our district. So why do renovations in an old middle school to have to undo them potentially in a few years to house students? So that's why we decided to move forward with that. Well, one of the things that got back to me when our levy failed was that people were saying, why would I pass a levy when you're going to add on to a board office? So what that demonstrated to me is either we didn't do a good enough job explaining the difference between PI dollars and operating dollars, or people just don't understand. So I'm going to suggest to the board tonight that we put the board office project on hold. We have the money to do it. It's permanent improvement dollars, but my fear is that there are, even as much as we talk about it, we don't have the city newspaper anymore. There are still too many people that don't understand the difference between permanent improvement dollars and operating dollars. And as soon as you start seeing a shovel go on the ground and a bulldozer digging a hole and walls going up at the board office at the same time you're trying to pass a levy, people immediately equate that, well, why do we need a levy then if you're going to build a new, an addition onto a board office? So I did contact our architects already and told them to put everything on hold, and I would give them direction after tonight, but I'm going to make a suggestion to the board that we put a stop to this until we get through our May levy vote and see what happens there. I'd like some feedback.
I just think that's, part of our marching orders to do a better job in communicating with the community to make sure that it's understood how the dollars are separated for in the future, not just for now, but I'm all in favor. If that's what the feedback was from the community, then I'm all in favor of putting it on hold. I know you guys need that space over there. You're all pretty crammed in there, but if that's what's going to help the community better understand how our money's spent, then we should do it.
Well said. I don't have to say anything else. Kevin just said it.
No, I mean, I wish that it could go through, but I understand that the community has to know where the money's coming from, and I get it, but we do need to do it eventually, and I hope people understand that when we do eventually do it, it's going to be more expensive to do it, because prices are going to go up, things are going to get more expensive, it's going to be more in the long run. So, but it is coming from, the money's coming from where Mike said it's coming from, and it's too bad we can't do it, because they do need more going on. That's all I got.
Okay, so I'm going to officially put this project on hold until at least until the May levy vote, and then we'll go from there. And in the meantime, part of our education with our community, getting the word out there, as Kevin said, are going to be trying to educate our residents on the differences between permanent improvement dollars and operating dollars. Because school funding is very difficult to understand, and if you only get snapshots of it every once in a while, if you don't use it, you lose it. So maybe people just don't remember the difference. You drive by, you see walls going up. Hey, I thought you needed money. I can understand that. That's why I think this is the best course of action at this time. All right. The next item on my list, this has been an incredibly difficult month since the last board meeting. And I personally, in my career, have never had to sit down and address cuts of things that we are very proud of, and things that this district, since 2010, since I've been here, this district has created, thanks to our residents passing renewals, passing a bond issue where we built on the buildings. We were able to add programs that benefited kids, programs that a lot of districts don't have. We've restored all of our extracurriculars. We've added sports teams. We've added curricular options like AP. We've added tons of electives. We've created opportunities for our kids that I'm very proud of, and I think our community is very proud of too. And so over the last month, I had to sit down and I had to take names and faces off of it, and I care about the people here. And CJ and I have come up with, as to date, $2.9 million in cuts that we can make if the levy doesn't pass in May. We're not done. I can tell you that number is going to be well over $3.5 million in cuts that we can institute immediately in May if the levy doesn't pass. I owe it to my staff not to tell you what those specifics are right now, because I need to meet with them and tell them before they read it in the newspaper or hear it on board meeting. So tonight, I'm going to give you kind of a 1,000-foot view of where we're at financially. I'm going to give you a 1,000-foot view of what the cuts are going to look like. And then I'm going to tell this board, I'm going to give you guys what it will look like with different villages and what we're going to have to cut in order to achieve certain villages. And then this board's going to have to make a decision on what type of a mill levy we want to put on the ballot in May. We presented at the 5-year forecast in November, which has already changed. Next fiscal year, we're going to be about $1.4 million in the red. It is against the law in the state of Ohio to finish a year in the red, which is why we put the levy on the ballot for 7.5 mills. That levy that was on the ballot for 7.5 mills had us finishing in 5 years with $110,000 cash balance. I'm not downplaying the amount of money we were asking our residents to pass, but we asked for we went as thin as we could, because we knew 7.5 mills was an extreme burden on everyone in the city, everyone. And we were trying to preserve programs, and we were trying to preserve what we built here in the district. So it didn't pass. It is what it is. It didn't pass. We now are forced to, I'm going to suggest some immediate cuts to you right now that we can make between now and June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, because we would have collected $1.7 million had that levy passed. So not only are we $1.3 to $4 million in the red next year, we would have collected $1.7 million for the second half of fiscal this year, and an additional $3.4 million next year. So we've got to make up money now. We can't wait to see if the levy is going to pass in May. We cannot. So we have to take action right now. So some of the things that I want to propose that we do right now. The first item I want to talk about is from January 4th, when our teachers return, until the end of the year, I'm going to suggest that we eliminate all field trips, all extra class trips, all extracurricular trips. The only thing that we won't cut from that item would be our athletics, because those are already scheduled and we've already committed to playing. So that would give us an estimated savings of between $9,000 and $10,000 from now until the end of the year. We've had a transportation supervisor move on. We had a mechanic resign to take a job somewhere else, and we had a high school tutor that I believe he resigned for some military work. So we're not going to replace any of those. It's going to be tough, but we're not replacing any of those, and that will save the district from now until June 30th about $108,000. I'm going to suggest that we eliminate all scheduled professional development for certified and classified that aren't paid through a grant. So we have several grants that we're paying for subs for some of the programs that we've talked about. Anything that's not paid for by grant, we eliminate. On the certified side, that'll save us an estimated $54,000, and on the classified side, $2,200. The next item, this will hurt, and I think some of the teachers in the room will probably agree to this. One of the things that we believe is a controllable cost is our copying. So one of the suggestions, and we've had CJ working with Andres in our copying company, we believe that we can take and create a quota for every teacher based on the subject that they teach and the curriculum materials they have. And we believe we can create a monthly quota. When they reach that quota, there's no more copies. We believe that will save at least $20,000 until the end of the year. All those totaled up are right around $192,846, $192,000, $192,846. That's money we have to save now. We have to save that now. And then one final suggestion, but this would have to be, again, a board decision. I don't have a dollar figure. We tried to get some dollar figures on what it would look like to close all of our buildings down at 4 o'clock, or a half hour after students leave, buildings close. Nothing in there, period. Lights go off, temperature goes down, custodians go about their work. Because even though some of the folks that use our facilities, they pay a very nominal fee, that fee does not even remotely cover the utilities and the wear and tear and what the custodians have to do. So that would be a savings, and we called all of our utility companies, and they all suggested, because obviously this is not the first district to suggest this. What they tell districts is you do it, and you draw historical data over about a 3-month period, and that's when you see your savings. So you have your buildings open, and then you close them, and after about a 3 months of data, you'll have your savings. We believe that it would be significant. So I'm proposing that we do these immediate cuts right now, because we are not collecting the $1.7 million. And if we don't pass this levy in May, it's unknown. We don't know if we're going to pass or not. So we cannot wait to do this. And the cuts that I'm suggesting do not impact students in the classroom and student programs, school student programs. I'm trying to preserve that at least for this year. Because next year, if it doesn't pass in May, the face of Streetsboro City Schools will never be the same. And we'll get into that in a second. Some feedback on the immediate cuts.
I do have a question. So we needed to collect, so you've got 192,000 in proposed cuts. but that doesn't make up the total amount that we needed to collect beginning in January.
There isn't really any way to make up $1.7 million without cutting into programs. We have negotiated agreements, we have contracts, so it's very difficult to make changes like that in the middle of a school year. So these were things that we could cut. They hurt, but we could cut that don't affect instruction, employment. Now, one of the things I do want to say that if we have retirements, resignations, whatever during the year, we're going to have to critically analyze whether or not we bring that back. And that's what we did with those 3 positions: a supervisor, a mechanic, and a tutor. So if we were to have a tutor resign tomorrow, it's more than likely that we would not bring that position back. And that would be additional savings. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
It's a good start. Thank you.
So I need feedback from you regarding where we go with these immediate cuts. Do I move forward with these immediate cuts? My recommendation is that we do. And then the second question is, do we close our buildings down?
I think you have to move forward with the cuts. And you weren't not going to have a dollar figure on how much the closing of buildings will save us until they're closed.
Correct.
So I would say, depending on what the other board members think, if we're going to close the buildings, we need to contact all of those potential parties that will be affected and let them know before the buildings are actually.
I would certainly do that.
Okay.
I would certainly do that.
And
by the way, I'm not suggesting that we would maintain our athletic teams. Our athletic teams would practice, and then we close the buildings. We'd still hold our games. I'm talking about non-school activities that are in our buildings every night and on the weekends.
So that includes all the youth?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any numbers from other districts about the savings that they have?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
We kept it to our district with our buildings, and we contacted our utility companies.
Okay.
I just know we're all going to be asked to make some really difficult decisions. But the reality is we cannot go any further downhill than we are right now. So I'm okay with the cuts. I'm okay with closing the buildings, and I know that's not going to be a popular thing in the district, but you have to do what you have to do.
So the closing the buildings, will that also impact, so we won't have custodians here at night with the buildings?
Custodians will still be here to clean, but the custodians aren't going to have to do other things.
That's what I mean. So are there extra custodians or people that are in the buildings because we have activities going on?
Sometimes the custodian times are extended and then they don't get to their work. A good example would be we have activities and we have snow come in. And so they have to stop what they're doing, they have to go out to their sidewalks, spread the ice, and then that means dirt being, and mud and water being tracked down. So they got to stop, they got to mop to make sure that it's safe to walk, and the carpets need to be. So those are the types of things that take them away from their work. And then they end up staying later, maybe get some overtime, and we don't really charge for any of that.
So Mike, I know that I just said youth sports, but can you give me some other things to be affected?
Yes, so we have the Streetsboro Parks and Recs that have not just sports, but they also have some different classes. They do art classes. They have several different opportunities for residents to take classes in our buildings. We have folks we have our own theater program, but then we also have Thrive is a separate program, and they do their own performances and practices. That would have to be shut down, not the theater side of it for the district. Looking at we have dance companies that rent our facilities. What we charge them isn't even remotely what it costs. We would say no to the dance companies that are going to be coming in the spring. That's a significant burden on our facilities. There's 2 or 3 different ones. We have a program. We have a couple entities that do Christmas programs. over Christmas time for their kids that are non-public school kids. They rent, but they use our auditorium. We have programs by churches. We've had programs by adult and men groups. We have folks that they rent the gyms and do pickup games in the mornings playing basketball. We have the Streetsboro United Soccer. We have a community wrestling program. All those things would be on that list because you can't just pick and choose who you do it for. You either do it or you don't. I could go on.
I know. Are there schools? Are there certain buildings we keep open and close some of the other ones after 4 o'clock? Is that
all of our buildings are being used?
Okay.
The middle school and the high school primarily for our things because of athletics, DEFR, SES, and then also the annex a little bit. They're being used pretty significantly.
And I'm okay with, unfortunately, okay with all of these cuts, except the one I'm still dealing with is the closing of the buildings. Only because I don't know if the savings is going to outweigh the impact that it's going to have on the community. But I think we need to get that historical data, unfortunately. And I know all of our buildings, it's crazy. You go past the building on any given day. I go to the library on Saturday and the annex building is being used. And I'm like, what's going on there today? And there's always something going on. But I think we need to take a serious look at the utilities and see exactly how much of the savings. Make sure that if we're closing the building, to make sure the lights are off, the gas is, the heat is turned down, and we're really doing it instead of just silly to leave the lights on.
Well, we have new systems now, new control systems that we can do that. And I'm also talking about when we close it down, we're going to close it down to staff too. There are staff members that use their time and maybe stay until 9 or 10 o'clock at night doing lessons, grading. The buildings are closing. If you have something to do, you're going to take it home.
I would just say that my concern is similar to Kevin's, that I don't want it just to be an annoyance, but there's no way to know what the savings are going to be until you do it. So I would like to know after the 3 months and you have some data, how much we're actually saving. But it's kind of like a catch-22. We can't get that data unless we close the building. So under those circumstances, I would support the measure.
We don't have to have an idea what it would be. I mean,
no. We can get any of our utility companies to give us a metric for that.
If we don't make any of these cuts, where are we at the end of the year?
With no cuts. Yeah. According to the October forecast, this year we finished with a cash balance of 1.7 million. Within next year's cash balance, a negative 1.3, the following year a negative 5, the following year a negative 9, the following year a negative 15 million.
So the steps that we're making now are really to bring down that deficit for next year.
Well, it's to make up for the money that we would have collected, but it's also to address the 1.3+ million deficit next year.
There's nothing we're not right now. If we don't make any cuts, this is we're fighting for next year now.
Yes.
Well, no,
you're fighting for this year.
Yeah, because of the way that taxes are collected.
If we pass a levy in May, we will not make any collections.
Not any at all next year until the fall.
Mike, is this a decision we have to make right now?
Well, you said January 4th, correct?
I think the natural rate I'm hearing questioning more so about the shutting of the buildings down due to other cuts. In order to realize the savings on the dollar amounts I gave you, we need to institute those immediately after break. So that's January 4. If you need more time to think about the impact of shutting down our buildings to non-school functions, we don't have to do that right now. But the longer you wait to do it, the less money you save. That's food for thought.
Well, here's, also, this is the coldest time of the year. So if we wait through the winter when we're spending money for gas and electricity, the days are longer, so you need the lights on longer and you need the heat. If we postpone the decision, then we're into the spring and we might not realize the savings that we would if we act more immediately. That makes sense.
It does. I know we're already committed, but have we looked at what it would cost for, I mean, what we'd save if we start cutting sports? I mean,
Yes, I have done that.
is it,
And I'm not going to talk about that today. I'll have a report with every single cut that was on the menu that I'll talk about here in a second. I'll have that in January, but I can't do that to our staff members.
Mike, if this is your recommendation, then I support it. If you think that closing the schools at 4 o'clock is what we need to do, then I'm fine with it. Okay.
I'd ask the board this. I would ask that each of you email me individually or contact me, call me individually about the topic of closing down buildings. I'm going to give you guys until Monday. And then when we have when I have some direction, I think I'm hearing direction now, but if you need to go home and sleep on it, then I'll make sure that I make an announcement. And I would, of course, contact everyone this affects.
And that'll also give us some time to hear from the community and take that into consideration as well.
All right, so I'm going to move forward with and begin notifying our staff about that $192,000 cuts that we can do immediately. That's not the building closing down. Those were the dollar amounts that I gave you. All right, now the second part of my presentation is that last month the board gave me direction, gave CJ direction to begin identifying cuts we can make in order to, plus the Ohio Department of Education directed me to issue a letter to them by January 6th, outlining what we would do to address the deficit next year. And we couldn't just say we're going to put a levy on the ballot. Right? So what we did is I met with Arian, CJ, and I met with every director and administrator in the district. And we did it on our own. And I want to say hats off to all those folks because, I was a building principal for a long time, and I know that you have a lot of pride. You take to heart in what you've done in your building. And when the superintendent asks you to start making cuts to programs, which then obviously you have to you try not to humanize it, but you do, and then start putting names and faces to the stuff. So it was tough. We had some tough conversations. And at the end of the day, CJ and I made the decisions. And right now we're right around 2.6, but there's some deltas in here. Right around 2.6 of $3 million that we could cut. We created a menu. And the reason I'm referring to this as a menu is this is going to affect what this board needs to decide the millage will be in May of a levy. So we've created a menu that will reflect up to about $3 million. I think it's going to even be more than that, really. I'll tell you why in a second. That we could cut from this district. Now understand, when I say that, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. We are not heavy in staff. The one area we are heavy in is we're elective heavy at the high school. What does that mean? That means electives are additional opportunities for our high school students to take during their high school experience. Electives are things that we don't have to offer. We have to offer core classes so they can meet their graduation requirements. The number of graduation points and graduation requirements. That's all we have to offer, it's state minimum. So high schools, traditionally, you guys know from when you were in high school, you add electives that are appealing to kids, okay? That is the one area in this district that we are, I don't want to say overstaffed because we're not overstaffed, we're just heavy. Because we've created a lot of really nice opportunities for our high school students. And a lot of that was based on our facilities and our building project, that they're non-core stuff. So we are not that overstaffed. So that's why it was very difficult to cut this much money from our budget. So we looked at, and again, I'm not going to get specific because I don't want to drop bombshells on any of our staff members, certified, classified, any of them. But we looked at administration. We looked at our certified employees. We looked at our classified employees. We looked at every single inch of programming in the district. Every class, every elective, every opportunity, every athletic team. And that will all be spelled out to you specifically at the next board meeting. And like I said, when we were doing this, when you look at a teacher, a step zero, bachelor step zero teacher, a brand new teacher coming in, if we throw a family plan on top of that, that costs the district right around $63,000 a year. Okay, so when we started putting dollars and cents to programs, we calculated everything at a bachelor step zero with a family plan. That's why I said that 2.6, almost up to 3 million. That's conservative because we did everything at the lowest level. Also, an unknown is we don't know if we're going to pass the levy in May, but we also don't know what our biennium budget's going to be. You know, somebody asked me the other day, my mom asked me the other day, how'd you get there? We got there because we've not had new money since 2010. We haven't asked for new money since 2010. We've grown actually more than 300 students, which means you add certified staff. We've lost over $10 million in tangible personal property tax right out of our general funds since 2010. $10 million. We're going to lose another $2 million in the next 2 years. And we're a capped district. So you hear about the state of Ohio increasing school funding. School districts are getting $6,000 a kid. We get $1,800 a kid. So we're growing. We're adding more and more and more in, but our funding is not reflecting our growth. We're getting $1,800 a kid. If one of those kids leaves, we send $6,000 out. It's coming from our taxpayers' pockets. So that's how we got here. So we looked at all these things. So I have this menu. All right. So let's look at possibilities for levies. So if we keep Streetsboro exactly the way it is right now, and we don't even institute the immediate cuts, we're going to do the immediate cuts now, but we don't follow through with those immediate cuts next year. So we add back in a mechanic, we add back in trips, we add back in transportation supervisor, we add back in copying. If we do all that, we keep Streetsboro. You walk out today, and next fall, Streetsboro is exactly the way it was today. That would take a 10 mil levy. That 10 mil levy would cost a homeowner of a $100,000 home $350 a year. That would collect $4.9 million a year. That's doing nothing and saying, we want this district to be exactly the way it is right now. 10 mil levy. Let's step back now. So if we institute the 192 this year, and then in years 2 to 5, we cut from our budget $330,000. So we take that menu that I just talked about, and we pick things from that menu that equal $330,000. If we do that, it would have to be a 9 mil levy. That 9 mil levy would generate $4.4 million a year. It costs the homeowner of a $100,000 home $315 a year. Step it back some more. If we cut the 192 this year, and then in years 2 through 5, because these are 5-year limited levies is what we're talking about, and we cut an additional $900,000 from our budget using that menu, that would be an 8.5 mil levy a day. That would cost the typical homeowner $297.50 a year. It would generate $4.1 million. And the cash balances, by the way, on all these is very thin at the end of 5 years. If we wanted to stick with the 7.5 mil levy that we had in November, and we put that back up in May, we would have to cut the 192 this year, and we'd have to cut $1.3 million from our budget in years 2 through 5 from that menu. That would generate that would cost the typical homeowner $262.50 a year. That would generate $3.6 million a year. So I'm giving you a range from 10 mils, 9 mils, 8.5 mils, 7.5 mils. That gives you an idea of where we're at and what we're. So if we do nothing and we want Streetsboro to be exactly what Streetsboro is right today, that's a 10 mil levy, no cuts. 10 mil levy a day. All the way down to, if we just stick with that 7.5 mil levy that we put up in November, we're going to have to cut $1.3 million every year for the next 5 years. Are there any questions? So what I'm going to suggest as you're digesting this, we have to do 2 readings before February 6th. We have to do a resolution of necessity and then a resolution to proceed. What I would suggest is that the January board meeting, we need to do the resolution of necessity. And then we're going to need to have a special board meeting at least 5 days after that to do our resolution to proceed so that we can get it on the ballot in May. But this is where I need feedback now from the board on where we're going to go with this.
Mike, can you repeat the, if we go with the 7.5 mil levy, what would we have to cut again?
7.5 mil levy, we'd have to cut the 192 this year and $1.3 million in years 2 through 5.
So 1.5.
And the unknowns in that are your biennium budget.
Right. That's 265.
Could be more, could be less, but it could be more.
You said it's only 265 a year.
No, that would be $262.50 for a $100,000 home per year. $262.50.
And it was 3.5 million. We have a million right in the year, Gary.
It generated 3.6 million. And then, did you want any other ones?
No, thanks.
I think the 10 mil is a lot, but I think people move here because we have good schools. And I think this last levy failed because we didn't get the word out the right way to the right people. People didn't understand, and it was on us. I would say we don't try to make serious cuts. When we're going to come up with 1.3 a year without I mean really messing things up and making the schools not what people want. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's a lot more. It's a lot more money, but I think if we make sure people understand what we have to offer and that we're going to continue to offer it, that I'd say stick with what we got.
So what you're saying is we couldn't pass a 7.5 mil levy, but maybe we could pass a 10 mil levy.
I think that it did pass because I don't think we got the word out. I think that just like we don't want to bill on the board office while we're trying to pass a levy because people didn't understand the difference in monies. I think it failed because people didn't understand why we need the money. Why do we need more money? Why do I have to get more money when you're not increasing any programs? We put out the word, hey, we need more money, but we're not increasing. We just want to show you what we got. And there was a disconnect there. Why do we need more if we're not increasing any programs? I don't think people understood why we needed the money. I think we get the positive message out as why we need it, not because we're spending more, because we're getting less. It's got to come from somewhere. And we needed to keep the schools as they are, which is pretty stellar. I think if we keep them as they are is where we got our best bet. If we're asking for money and we're telling them we're to make cuts, I don't like the odds. And at the end of it, I'd like to see the schools stay where they are. I mean, we've got a lot of good programs.
Do you have any recommendations on how we should get the word out?
Yeah, I'd like to see us start. I mean, we had the coffee talks. I think we need to start sooner.
Were you at the coffee talks?
I was at one of them. I got stuck at work. They did, and why? Who knows? I think we need to have more. I think we should start having them next month, once a month, twice a month. Maybe have them more informal, talk to people. Why weren't you there? What can we do to have people there? Where can we meet with people? I mean, let's send people out to whatever's going on. Can we go down to when there's the breakfast after church? Can we send someone down there to do a 5-minute talk and pass out some papers? Can we have people at the elementary school when there's the mile-long line to drop kids off and pick people up? Can one or two of us be out there shaking hands, kissing babies, and hey, this is what's going on. This is why we need your money. This is why we need your help. I mean, wherever we can find it. I mean, if there's two parents there, let's get there and
well, I appreciate your thoughts on that. I think I was at pretty much every levy committee meeting. Did I miss any, Sherry? I was at every levy committee meeting.
Except for the nights that the board meetings were on.
Yeah, so I missed the night that the board meeting was on. There were on average 4 people at those levy committee meetings, including myself. And I went to each of the coffee talks. And so when you talk about standing in line when people are going to pick up their kids, who's going to be standing in that line? Because like 3/4 of the levy committee is here right now, including myself, and that's 4 people. Are you, and I'm just playing devil's advocate. We need more people to come to our levy committee meetings. 4 people cannot raise funds. I mean, I wrote a check for almost $1,000 to pay for signs. Granted, I was reimbursed, but how many people out there will be willing to write a check out of their personal account to pay for levy signs, whether or not they were going to get reimbursed? It's incumbent upon everybody in this room to get to those levy committee meetings. If you say you want the schools to be what they are, I think actions speak louder than words. We need people to come to the levy committee meetings. We need people to take marching orders about how to get that word out. One of the things we talk about at levy committee meetings is we no longer have a weekly newspaper, which is a huge detriment to getting out the word. We don't have the bodies to do the kinds of things that you're suggesting doing, because we only have 1 superintendent and 1 assistant superintendent and 4 people on the levy committee. So that makes it very difficult to get out the word when those 4 people are writing checks out of their personal accounts at the same time. And I wasn't the only one, other people did too, to pay for copying, for flyers, and to pay for stencils so we could fundraise to make more money. You're asking 4 people to get the word out, pay all the costs, and raise funds for the levy. I think it might be more advisable if people came to the levy committee meetings and brought 2 or 3 people with them.
This is great, though. I mean, the attendance that we have is exceptional. So let's hope that these people tell other people, and they tell other people, and we get the help by doing that. Social media, hopefully, it's in our favor, and people help, and they get the word out that we need that.
And I would appreciate that. I think that it's like I said, we go to the levy committee meetings because we believe it's important. We know that we need to approve the levy. I would be interested in any suggestions that anybody has about how to encourage more people to come to those meetings. And I will say that we did have people who helped canvass. More people than came to the meetings did help canvass, but still that was a limited number of people. And it's very difficult to get the word out. I would appreciate it if anybody has suggestions about maybe how to better use social media, and understand that the school district by law cannot say vote for the levy. So that means volunteers have to do it, and volunteers have to get out the word. So if anybody would like to participate and come to those meetings to tell us, you know, how we can better get the word out and how we can reach more people. Like I said, I'm not being critical of individuals. I just want, you know, it's easy to say, do this, do that. But we need, you know, fewer chiefs and more Indians.
When's the next meeting?
I'm meeting with the levy committee on Monday to establish they're going to bring me some ideas on some things that I can do and the district can do, and then we're going to establish our plan of attack on Monday. So I don't want to speak for Sherry and the group, but I think that we're going to try and get a pretty good plan in place, or we start talking about it on Monday. And so probably the next board meeting or sooner, we can have give the board some ideas on what we're going to do, what the activities are. But we really can't do that until the board decides. We can't get out there in front of our public until the board decides the election.
I spotted another levy committee member back there in the corner.
Can you let me know when the next meeting?
So the entire committee is here.
But we can't get out in front of the community with information, because you don't want to get false information. So the board has to set a millage, and we have to own it, and then we have to educate.
I think a big piece of the education has to be all the money we've lost. Because the one thing that's over the last 15 or so years that I've been on the board, the thing that's been consistent is less money from the state and the unpredictability of the state. And when we lost all that tangible personal property tax, that hurt. It hurts when we pay more money for our students going out of the district than we do when our own students stay here. And yeah, the lottery helps. We get, I'm not sure what we were getting now. I know when I first got on, I asked the treasurer at the time, what are we getting from the lottery? He's like $1 million a year. And I said, well, what do we do with it? But then they play the shell game where the state takes that money out somewhere else because that's outside funding. And I think it's just ridiculous. We just need to compile that information and make sure the city or all the residents understand what we're dealing with when it comes to state funding. Because it's just not, here's a whole bunch of money, go do what you want with it. It's just less and less. And every year that the budget comes out, everybody gets worried.
Lottery money is supplanted.
Yeah. And I think that people keep hearing that we get $6,000 per student from the state, and they don't understand that we actually don't get $6,000. We get $1,900 from the state. The rest of that is locally voted tax dollars. But whenever you read an article in the newspaper talking about state funding and per student cost, they always use the number, well, school districts get $6,000 per student. You know, they really don't go into the details of telling people that the state doesn't actually, there's a formula, and each school district doesn't get $6,000. So, and again, as you said, we're capped. Even though our district is growing, we don't get money for those extra students.
The money we get doesn't reflect the growth.
Yeah.
People also should really start to educate themselves on what they're paying in taxes and how taxes really work. Because if we vote on this millage and there are new homes that come in, how many are on the books? 350?
Oh, somewhere around 500 last I heard.
Yeah.
I think they just voted on Deer Meadow to add 40 new homes. Is it Deer Meadow that's 40 new homes? Meadowview. But what happens is that those people, they don't, that tax money is not additional money that goes to the, to the Portage County Tax Authority, and then they divvy it up. What happens is the millage gets spread out amongst more people. So you don't collect more money, you collect the same or less every year than what you did the year before. So people really need to understand that because we're building new homes, we're not getting more money, we're just getting more bodies.
Well, we're taking the money that we voted and spreading it out among all the new people, which then takes your tax burden and lowers it.
And there's been tremendous growth in this city since I moved here, and I've watched. One of the reasons that I got on the board is because there was a levy that I wasn't aware of, and when I got to the to vote on it, it came up as one of the things on the ballot, and I was shocked. So I wanted to do what I could do to help this community get more educated. It's very, very difficult to, and I'm trying to choose my words the right way, it's hard to advertise anymore because you don't have the same way of advertising as you did years ago, where you would pay dollars to have a TV ad that's on the news channel, where today it would be how many people actually watch the news. It's on your phone, or you record the news, or you record that TV program, and whenever the commercials come on, you DVR past it, so you don't even see them anymore. So how do you advertise anymore? I mean, it's social media, you have Twitter, Snapchat, whatever else is on there. I can't tell you, but it's Facebook. It's a grassroots effort to get the information out to people, and with what Denise is talking about, with no bodies to do that, I mean, it's very, very difficult. I can't believe that this community in 2013 passed a bond issue to rebuild our district at a 65% passage rate, and we can't pass a levy to operate our buildings. That's, to me, that's a shame. And, you know, shame on us for not being able to get out to more people, but it's really not that easy to do anymore. So you need an army to pass a 7.5 levy, let alone a 10 mil levy. You know, I can't even imagine cutting anything at this point, but we have to. I just hope that when it comes up in May, that those people, that those 65% that voted yes for the bond issue, vote yes for the passage of whatever amount we put on the ballot.
Do we need to entertain having a special meeting or work session to drill down to what notes we want to put on the ballot? That would have to be before January, the January board meeting. We need to do the January board meeting, which is right on the 12th or 13th. I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me. Then it has 5 days have to pass, and then we can do our special for the resolution to proceed.
So the second Thursday in January is the 10th.
Okay, so it would have to be before the 10th. So between now and January 10th, if the board would like to have a time to think about this, and then come back in a work session and make a decision on the millage.
Okay, so you presented us with 4 options on the millage.
The reason I did 4 options is because going like an 8 or an 8.5 or it's minuscule difference. So we shot where we thought we could make it work.
Okay.
But I mean, we could calculate 10, 9.9, 9.8, 9.7. I mean, we could do that. I just tried to give you guys a snapshot, the menu, and then a snapshot.
Make it 9.99. It sounds better than 10.
I can do that.
I mean, I would be okay. So you're suggesting that potentially have a work meeting to discuss where we want to land. Like, do we want to land basically at 10 or 7.5?
Or somewhere in between.
Or somewhere in between.
I'm not seeing a definitive, you guys are hearing this for the first time. I have 30 days to put this together. The clock is ticking because to declare for the May levies, February 6th. So I'm reading your nonverbals, and I'm suggesting that maybe you don't commit to a number tonight, that maybe you go home, you think about it, you talk to whoever you want to talk to about it, and then we hold a special board meeting. It would have to be probably next week, or I don't know what people are looking for between Christmas and New Year's is always tough.
Can we pick a date next week that everyone could be available?
Next Thursday?
Can't be.
I'm completely open on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
At what time?
If you guys.
Is 7 o'clock better for those that are working that day?
No, I'm good, whatever. Cut my hours. It's either 6 or 7. 6 is fine.
John, can you be here at 6?
I can. It's just, I know this is important. During the week is tough for everybody. I'm wondering if maybe the weekend would be better. I mean, when you work all day, you come home, you're there for 5 minutes, give your wife a kiss, say hi to your kids, and then you're here for 2-3 hours for meeting. I'm not opposed to that. This is important, but it's a busy time of the year. It's a holiday season. I know it's important, but maybe the weekend at least gives you some time to have lunch and then come here. That's all. If that's a problem, I'll make it Wednesday. It's okay. I can just speak in my mind. That's all. Sometimes that's not right, but I don't know.
I could do Saturday.
But Mike lives an hour away.
I'll do whatever you guys tell me to do.
So that's a problem for him too. So.
How about if one of us brings some food for John?
I'm eating more than food that night.
I'm okay with Wednesday, especially like you said, it's Wednesday at 6, given the fact that our superintendent does drive an hour, and if we could make it, at a time where everybody could get here from their work, but not so late that he's hanging out for a couple of hours before a meeting begins.
Wednesday at 6.
Linda, could you have Sherry call them up so we can notice it?
Will you be able to have some more specifics on those numbers by then? As opposed to just saying like a blanket, we're gonna cut 1.3. I mean, that's not a lot of time to contact everyone, but
I don't have time between now and next Wednesday to sit down with all the staff members that are gonna be affected by these cuts. And I also don't want to do that before Christmas.
I agree, Mike, that's a good idea.
December 19th, 6 p.m. Are we meeting back here at Denver?
I'm getting ready to send a calendar invite for here, and that way the public shows we have enough room for everybody. All right, just send everyone a calendar invite. All right, anything else? Any more questions? Comments about what I presented?
Can you send the millage information that I wrote down, but I scribbled it real quick? So,
Yeah, just send it to all of us, those things you provided us with.
Yep, thanks, Mike.
Okay, moving on. The next item on my agenda is, is busing. If you guys remember, I think it was July, we had our meeting at the new middle school. June or July, I don't remember. But we had talked about, and we raised the sub rate a little bit because we were dramatically lower. We are still having problems getting subs. And I'm wondering if we raise our sub rate by $1 more, take it to that $15 rate. It's at 14 now. It's at 14.50. Raise it to 15, which our trip rate's also 15 that our drivers can do. If we might attract more people. But very frankly, we have 2 drivers, and then we have 3 that are pretty consistent. But 2 of those 3, sometimes they don't want to do it because they have other obligations. We're hurrying for our subs. And the way these routes were designed, if we don't have a sub, then we're going to have to do an all-call to a route, and they're going to wait a while because we don't have a sub. So we're going to wait till a bus comes in to then send another bus out, the way the routes are designed.
I think it's a great idea.
So we're trying to come up with ways to attract. I know that Andreas and I have talked multiple times. He had a lot of other ideas. This is the only idea I really felt responsible to bring forward at this time with our financial situation. A 50-cent raise on our sub rate is going to make us at or above most of the districts around us at $15 an hour. He's got some great ideas to try and recruit maybe some college kids. Some other ideas too. Sometimes people shy away from paying for the training, so there's something for you to think about. I'm not suggesting it tonight, but something for you to think about would be maybe we come up with an idea that we'll pay for your training, which is about $200, as long as you sign a contract and you stay with us for at least 2 months. If you don't, you can pay it back. I'm just throwing out examples. I wasn't saying 2 months. But we're gonna have to get creative with our recruitment of drivers because people just aren't, and you talk, I don't care, talk to any superintendent they're going to tell you that one of their #1 issues are getting sub-bus drivers. It's everywhere. So the only way you can combat is to maybe try and steal subs from other districts by paying a little bit more.
And really, our sub drivers are taking the place of our normal drivers when they're off sick, not special trips that we're already cutting.
Sometimes it's special trips, but we're cutting those.
This is more just to maintain our level of service.
It's going to be a very minimal amount to the balance sheet. I would say I would agree with it, but keep in mind, may not need it.
That's right. All right, so I will add that under superintendent. Am I hearing that you guys are in favor of, I'm hearing some consensus that we can add that as an agenda item in my recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. Next item, we're almost done, folks. Next item on the list, our January organizational meeting. I'm going to propose that we start that at 6:30 because that's also the Maplewood Career Center board meeting night, their organizational meeting. And obviously Brian is our representative there. Obviously he can't be two places at once. So he thinks he can be back here by 6:30. So what I'm proposing is we do our January organizational meeting at 6:30 with the board meeting immediately following. Is that good for everyone?
Yes.
So January 10th at 6:30.
Right.
Did I say so? All right, that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Next on the agenda is treasurer's report. Are you going to take that?
Yep. So item A, or I'm sorry, treasury report. Okay, so when you look at, bring it up on your screen, it's the general fund review. If you take a look, this report shows the overall health of the general fund over a 3-year period. As of October 31st, 2018, the general fund's cash balance is $5,401,579. This is about $1.4 million less than October of last year. This follows a similar trend from prior months. The main causes of that decline are, you guessed it, the phase out of tangible personal property tax, and then also the increase in costs. Any questions about that? It's a pretty basic.
Just a comment. You had mentioned about a year ago, we were at $6.85 million as our balance. 2017, we were at 7.477. So it's going down. And $5 million seems like a ton of money, but when you're operating a school district, it's not. So it's going down.
Any other questions or comments?
The only comment I have is that because we did pass those levies back in 2010, I can remember there were points that we had to borrow money to make payroll. I think once or twice a year almost.
Every January, we will borrow money to make payroll.
Yeah. So I would say that, in my opinion, we've been pretty fiscally responsible to get our cash balance to where it's at. But it is now almost gone again, and just for the reasons that you mentioned.
Okay, that concludes the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Dalbaugh. Again, moving on to board reports. Mrs. Ballard.
I just wanted to mention that the last couple of board meetings, we've been talking about graduation requirements and the fact that a number of students in Streetsboro were in danger of not graduating because of the stricter graduation requirements. And Streetsboro wasn't the only district around the state. Pretty much every school district was saying they needed relief. And so state legislature has acted, and a bill has been sent for the governor's signature to extend the alternate graduation requirements that were offered to the class of 2018 will also be offered to the class of 2019. Some slight adjustments have been made for the class of 2020. And so, the state legislature made these changes, and bam, they implemented it. And previously, they changed the graduation requirements, making them stricter. They implemented it, and then they found out that a whole bunch of students weren't going to be graduating. So they offered a stopgap measure, which would have not applied to this year's graduating class, which was going to have the same problem as the previous year's graduating class. So hopefully the governor will sign this bill, and all the kids that are supposed to graduate will graduate. And I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
No, basically restores the pathways that were eliminated from last year, which should give the majority of our students the opportunity to graduate.
It's the resolution that we
Correct.
sent and opposed of.
And I just want to mention secondarily that earlier this month, I attended a meeting down at the Ohio School Boards Association for Student Achievement and was fortunate enough to hear about a study that's being proposed in combination between the Ohio School Boards Association and the Ohio State University. And basically what they're going to do is, you know, when researchers study student achievement, they look at what's being done in the classroom. What these pair of researchers from Ohio State are going to do is instead of looking in the classroom, they're going to look at things outside the classroom that could affect student achievement. So as I understand what they're proposing is they're going to select a school district that may be underperforming, that has, they're going to take, study 2 classes. One is going to be a control class, and the second class, they're going to assign advocates for the students, and they're going to help. They're looking at the whole student, so they're going to help the student's family get all the services that it might need, whether it's, say, help finding a job, medical assistance, or anything that may be causing stress on that family. They're going to try to provide those, an advocate that can help that family get those services. And the goal is to see if you kind of relieve some of those stresses that could be affecting kids at home, if they will increase their performance in the classroom. So I probably haven't done as good a job of explaining this research project as the actual researchers have, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. I understand it's the first type of research of this kind, I believe, in the state of Ohio, and I think the results could be interesting. And again, the idea is that typically when you research student achievement and what can be done to improve it, it's all about what's happening in the classroom. How can we change how we teach? What can we add to how we teach? Now these researchers are going to be looking at student supports outside the classroom to see if supporting the whole child can make an impact in the classroom. And I think that research could, you know, depending on what the results are, have some interesting things that we might be able to use here at Streetsboro. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was interesting. That's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Baba. Mr. Gibson?
I have nothing to report right now.
Mr. Grimm?
Just a couple of items. High school and middle school had their winter band concert this past week. Everybody did a great job. Mr. Seola and Mrs. Logan are doing a wonderful job with all of our students in band. 6th grade choir will have their holiday concert December 20th at 7 o'clock at the high school auditorium. And tomorrow, since we're not in the school buildings every day, I just wanted to show my support tonight. Tomorrow is Michaela Day at Streetsboro Middle School. Michaela, student at Streetsboro Middle School, for the last 2.5 years has been battling leukemia. This past weekend, she was featured in the Record Courier as a kid with character. And on, I believe it was Monday, she got to ring the bell at UH Seidman Cancer Center, signifying the end of her chemotherapy treatments. She's doing great. For those people that know who Michaela is, she's a bubbly young lady, and she's a warrior. So, and for Michaela Day at the middle school, they're encouraging people to either wear orange in support of leukemia research, and those people battling leukemia wear teal, her favorite color, or something soccer oriented, which is her favorite sport. So the whole community, they thank you to the family really for letting the community in and becoming part of their family and supporting Michaela during this time. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Kelly?
Just a few things, as Mr. Hogue pointed out earlier, the girls basketball team is off to a really good start, and then Rachel's accomplishment also, he mentioned that. Boys basketball, they won their first league game last Friday. They played Springfield at Quicken Loans Arena, so that's a pretty big deal. Wrestling team this past weekend, they finished 3rd at the Clearwater Fork Invitational, with Caden Rogers and Chris Anderson finishing as champions and Sam Miller as one of the runner-ups. Captain's Council this evening, for the 8th consecutive year, they served lunch to the homeless at the Kent Social Services. They also adopted a family for Christmas through the Department of Job and Family Services. And lastly, 15 members of our Captain's Council completed their training so they can volunteer as elves on the Polar Express on December 19th from 5 to 9:30. And I'm sorry, one last thing. Since the inception of the bowling that we did a few years ago, we're up to 19 members on the bowling team. So that's a pretty big jump from where we began, which wasn't many at all. So anyway.
Can I add a couple weeks to your report?
Sure.
Great pictures of the Captain's Council on Twitter, all with their hair nets on and their gloves. They're like looking great. And then Rachel Boyard is actually 10 points away from breaking the all-time scoring record for girls. So she had the opportunity. Again, I was at the game versus Coventry, and we beat them by, I believe, more than 40 points or close to 40 points. And so appropriately, Coach Singer put in, he pulled the starters, but she would have very easily broke that record at that point. So if you want to see a record break, come to our next girls game.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Just a few comments. The Maplewood meeting notes from last month. I'll send them to you. I did not send them to you yet. And I just wanted to kind of highlight one more time the three young ladies that were standing up here in front of us. We hear those great stories throughout the year about the products that we're providing to the city here, and those three young ladies are a great example of what is being produced by the Streetsboro City Schools. And I just want to say thank you to all that have had anything to do with any of those kids' lives. I couldn't be more proud of the district when those kids were put in front of us. So thank you. And that's all I have. Moving on to the consent agenda. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through J.
I'll move.
Second.
First and second, any comments? Just real quick, just on item C, donations, I'd like to just make sure that everyone takes a look at those and notes them. That's it. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly? Yes. Mrs. Babbitt?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes. Motion carried. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations.
I do need to add item E, raising the sub rate to $15 an hour. So we'll get when we get to that. Mr. Grimm will need that. That is item E. So item A, it is recommended the Board of Education accept the bid from Myers Equipment Corporation, Thomas Bus, for the purchase of 2 buses totaling $181,828 to be paid for from permanent improvement funds.
I'll move.
Second.
First and second, any comments?
Yes. So one of the reasons that you've heard some feedback from folks that athletic teams sometimes get to games late would be because we don't have any spare buses. We have one spare bus right now, and another bus that we had sent off for warranty work has been gone several weeks, and they went to pick it up, and they were a mile down the road from the repair shop and took it back. So our fleet, we typically bought 2 buses every year from PI dollars. We delayed that last year. We're going to bump up to 84 passenger buses. These are a little bit larger buses. Will be what you call the transit style. It'll enable us to transport more kids. We did 10-year warranties on the buses, and on the drivetrain, there's 7-year warranties.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Babbitt?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes.
Motion carried.
Item B is recommended the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding for the case manager position as well as the evaluation instrument as shown in the attachment.
I'll second.
First and second, comments?
This is just a formality. We have a case manager this year that helps with our testing, our special ed testing. And because that's a certified staff member, we have to create an evaluation instrument for this person. So Joe Petrarca and members of the SEA work together to create an evaluation system, and that's what this is about.
So we built that ourselves, the evaluation system.
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Item C, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the payroll, or the payment rather, to Kyle Teague in the amount of $23,124 due to being incorrect on the salary schedule since the start date through the 2016-2017 school year.
I'll move.
I'll second. We have first and second. Any comments?
Yes, so what this is about, and I know we've talked about this before, but Kyle Teague had 3 years of military service, and when he started in the district back in 2013, he should have been placed at step 4, and he was placed at step 0. That wasn't caught until recently, last year. So because this is such a complicated issue, because you're talking about across tax years, and you're talking about negotiated raises and step increases, so it's a pretty big puzzle to unwind. So we made Kyle whole as far as the correct step. At the beginning of this school year, we already made that payment for him, but this is now then the back pay that we owe him from dating back from 2013-14 school year through the end of the 2017 school year. That amount of money is that $23,124. We did get a legal opinion because if we get audited and they pull us, why are you awarding back pay to someone? So we had to have a legal opinion done by our attorneys in order to have that in place. And also we had our attorneys draft basically an agreement that Mr. Teague would sign saying that he was satisfied with how we paid him back and that he would take no further action.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes.
Motion carried.
Item D, it is recommended the Board of Education ratify the difference of Kyle Teague's 2017-18 salary to the correct step, which was paid on 8/17/18 in the amount of $5,994.
I'll move.
I'll second. First and second.
This is what I just said before. We made him whole at the beginning of the school year, put him onto the correct step, and that was to the tune of $5,994.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, item E, I'm going to wing it. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the modification of the substitute bus driver rate from $14.50 to $15 an hour.
I'll move.
I'll second.
First and second. We've already talked about it, so please call the roll.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes.
Motion carried.
That concludes my recommendations.
Okay, moving on to treasurer's recommendations.
On behalf of CJ, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the amended appropriations for fiscal year 19 and estimated resources will be adjusted as needed for permanent appropriations.
A second.
First and second.
And thank you to Mr. Dalbaugh for applying for the grant, which was awarded. Was that the case?
Yes.
In the
So,
amount of $12,000, which is why we're amending the appropriations, because we got a grant.
yes, for to address safety items in the district. So it's going to roll right back into the classroom. That's all I'll say on that. And I'm also working on another one, actually, through the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Mr. Grimm's been helping me out too. And we're hoping to finish up a project that we started. Everyone, safety items.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Bama?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Item B, it is recommended the Board of Education authorize the treasurer to enter into a contract with Rhea and Associates to prepare the annual financial audit from 7/1/18 through 6/30/23.
I'll second. First and second comments. This is the same company. It's
Yeah.
not every year.
The state auditor actually allowed us to granted us an extension of 5 years to use our own company. We used Ray and Associates for several years. They know our district. They're competitively priced, but that relationship that we already have with them is pretty critical, which is why we are suggesting the 5 years. I'm going to 5-year contract.
Please call the roll. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mrs. Bama?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to new business. Mr. Gibson.
Yes, and when we were down at the OSBA conference in Columbus, I talked with a couple board members that had done this in their districts, where they had a regular part in the old business to address public comments from the previous meeting. Not to say that we don't respond to people or don't get back to people, but if someone steps up, they ask questions, we respond to them personally, either through Mr. Dobb or Ariane will send them out something, but they get the answer, but everyone else doesn't get the answer. And I thought it would be helpful to have just that addressed. And I mean, every meeting we just, and if there's things that aren't relevant or aren't something we should be putting out, I mean, it's not everything, but if somebody gets up and has, a question about their baseball team, they don't use the fields. Oh, okay, well, we'll get back to you. And we get back to that person individually, but then everybody else in the room at the next meeting would have access to the same answer, as long as it didn't, contain any personal information. I already talked about it briefly with Brian, but I just thought it'd be helpful to have a discussion and see what we can do about it. I think that it would go a long ways to improving our relations with the community, which certainly could help with making it easier to pass levies.
I think if it's an appropriate topic, then if it needs follow-up, then we can follow up with it, just make sure we remain consistent. But again, if it's dealing with student information, teacher information, the things that we normally wouldn't kind of talk about.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah, and not that we don't follow up with the individual. I just do this as a group, you know what I mean? Right. So that anyone else in the room that heard that comment could show up the next meeting, watch it online, whatever, and be able to see what the answer was, so they know what we're up to.
In a normal meeting, we don't have any public here, but they can watch it or listen to it on the radio.
Maybe see what the answer was.
Hopefully we'll change that.
I'm just gonna, in my opinion, I would say that adding it as an agenda item, having a placement as an agenda item is probably not necessary. If we feel that is something that should be addressed to the public, we can instruct Mr. Dava or whoever the board president is when they're making the agenda to bring that up or put it on the agenda for that meeting. But adding it as a card holder on there, I don't know if it's necessary.
It is old business, so that would be an appropriate location.
Yep.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, when you have those instances, Mr. Dalbaugh, you have gone back and said, last month, this person came and talked about it. Usually you kind of take care of that under your superintendent's report.
Yeah.
I would suggest that if there's a board member who also wants to address something, that maybe that is where, so if Mr. Dalbaugh addressed something under his superintendent's comments, then if later a board member wants to address something that came up at a previous meeting, that could be done under old business. And there's nothing that keeps any board member from doing that.
Yeah, we can comment on anything under new business or old business. So.
I'm okay with it. I mean, I thought it was a great idea to add it permanently to the agenda. I mean, just to kind of hold us to the, you know what I mean? We can't not discuss it because it's on there. But I discussed it with Brian earlier. He shed me some wisdom on it, and I'm okay with it not being an agenda. I might just wanted to have a discussion, see what everyone's thought about it. And Mike does usually bring things back up, but I feel like we're struggling with a bit of, you know what I mean? Probably, you know what I mean? And I think that was just suggesting a way to get a little better interaction.
I think it's a good suggestion, but under the circumstances, you can put it under old business, and we just need to be diligent to make sure that we bring it back up the following month if it is something that we should be speaking about.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Any old business? Hearing none. Moving on to board president's recommendations. It's recommended the 2019 organizational meeting be scheduled for January 10th, 2019 at 6:30 at Henry Deffer Intermediate, with the board's regular meeting to follow.
I'll move.
Second.
First and second. Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Babbitt?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carries. Item B is it is recommended that the 2018 board president Brian Viola serve as president pro tem at the organizational meeting January 10th, 2019 until the board appoints the successor.
I'll move.
I'll say.
First and second. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Beal?
Yes, motion carried. Item C. It's recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to consider the employment of a public employee or official with possible action to follow.
Can we amend that to say no action?
With no action to follow.
I'll move.
I'm second.
First and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly? Yes. Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm, yes. Mr. Beal?
Yes, motion carried. We're in executive session at 8:12.
Oh.